Before we dive into this story of unexpected courage and the secrets hidden behind the curtains of the elite, please take a brief moment to subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue bringing you these powerful narratives. Now, let us step into the gilded halls of Manhattan. The Hotel Ashford was not merely a building. It was a fortress of limestone and gold leaf, a monument to old money standing stoically in the heart of Manhattan. To walk through its revolving mahogany doors was to leave the noise and grime of the city behind and enter a world where the air smelled perpetually of white tea and fresh orchids. It was a place where silence was a luxury item, purchased at a premium by men in bespoke suits and women in silks that cost more than a mid-sized sedan. But for Maya Brooks, the Hotel Ashford smelled of lemon-scented industrial cleaner and bleach. Maya was 9 years old, small for her age, with eyes the color of dark coffee and scuffed sneakers that she had tried to whiten with toothpaste earlier that morning. She sat on a plastic crate in the service corridor of the 22nd floor, her legs dangling, waiting. The service corridor was the Ashford's artery, the secret circulatory system that kept the heart beating. It was gray, lit by buzzing fluorescent tubes, and narrow, a stark contrast to the plush velvet carpets just a few inches away on the other side of the heavy fire doors. "Maya, honey, stay right there. Don't move." Her mother's voice came from inside the presidential suite. Elena Brooks was one of the invisible army. She was an independent contractor for the cleaning staff, a woman who scrubbed marble until her knuckles were raw, ensuring that no smudge, no fingerprint, and no dust mote disturbed the fantasy of the guests. Tonight was critical. The Gala for Mental Resilience, a high-profile fundraiser hosted by the city's financial titans, was taking place in the grand ballroom downstairs, but the VIPs were using the upper suites for private meetings and preparations. Maya pulled a worn notebook from her backpack. She wasn't supposed to be here. The rules were strict. No family, no children, no existence outside of the uniform. But the babysitter had canceled last minute with the flu, and Elena couldn't afford to lose a shift that paid double time. So Maya became a ghost. She opened her notebook. It was filled with drawings of birds, mathematical equations she liked to solve, and notes from her time with Mrs. Gable, the counselor at the community center in Queens. Maya liked Mrs. Gable. She taught Maya things that other adults didn't. She taught her that feelings were like weather. Sometimes it stormed, sometimes it was sunny, but the sky always remained. Maya looked up as a cart rattled past, pushed by a man named Henry who delivered room service. Henry winked at her. He was part of the secret club, the people who made the magic happen but were never allowed to see the show. "Big night, little bit," Henry whispered, slipping her a foil-wrapped chocolate mint intended for a pillow. "The sharks are swimming tonight." "Are they biting?" Maya whispered back, unwrapping the mint. "They're always biting," Henry chuckled, pushing the cart toward the service elevator. "Stay hidden. Mr. Sterling is on the prowl." Maya shivered. She knew who Mr. Sterling was, the head of hotel security, a man with a gaze as cold as the marble floors. She ate the mint slowly, savoring the sugar. She was bored. Her mother had been in the suite for 40 minutes. The sound of a vacuum cleaner hummed, then stopped. Curiosity is a dangerous thing for a mouse in a house of cats, but Maya was 9, and boredom was a powerful motivator. She stood up, stretching her limbs. The service door to the main hallway was slightly ajar, propped open by a rubber wedge so her mother could drag the heavy vacuum cord through. Maya peeked out. The hallway of the 22nd floor was empty. It was like a different planet. The sconces on the walls looked like real gold candles. The carpet was so thick it looked like moss. It was quiet. Too quiet. She took a step out. Just one, then another. She wanted to see the painting at the end of the hall, a massive landscape of a stormy ocean that she had only glimpsed once before. She walked softly, her sneakers making no sound on the plush wool. She reached the painting and stared at the oil waves crashing against rocks. It looked violent and beautiful. Suddenly, the elevator dinged. Maya froze. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in her chest. She couldn't run back to her mother's room. It was too far, and she would be seen. She looked left, then right. The hallway was a T-shape. She darted around the corner, pressing her back against the damask wallpaper, holding her breath. She heard heavy footsteps. 2 men. The numbers don't lie, Graham. If we don't announce the merger tonight, the stock tanks by morning. You have to go down there and smile. The voice was raspy, aggressive. I can't. I just need a minute, a second voice replied. This voice was different. It sounded tight, strained, like a violin string pulled until it was about to snap. You don't have a minute. You have the entire board waiting. Pull yourself together, man. You're Graham Wexler. Act like it. The footsteps stopped near a set of double doors. The executive lounge, currently reserved for VIP holding. Leave me alone, Marcus. 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Then I'm coming in to get you. A door slammed. Then, silence. Maya waited for the aggressive footsteps to fade away toward the elevators. When the coast was clear, she knew she should run back to the service corridor. She knew she should disappear. But then she heard it. It was a sound that didn't belong in the Hotel Ashford. It didn't belong among the gold leaf and the oil paintings. It was a sound raw and terrifyingly human. It was the sound of a man gasping for air, followed by a low, guttural sob that seemed to be ripped from his throat. It was coming from behind the door where the man named Graham had gone. Maya hesitated. Her mother's warning echoed in her head. We are invisible, Maya. We see nothing, we hear nothing. But Maya remembered Mrs. Gable. When someone is drowning, Maya, it doesn't matter if they are wearing a crown or a cap. They just need a hand. She crept toward the door. The wood was dark mahogany, solid and imposing. She pressed her ear against it. The sound was clearer now. Hyperventilation. Quick, shallow breaths that sounded like a ragged saw cutting through wood. The man was choking on air. Maya looked at her sneakers. She looked back at the safety of the corner. Then she looked at the brass handle. She didn't run away. Graham Wexler was drowning on dry land. He was 42 years old, the CEO of Wexler Dynamics, a fintech conglomerate that effectively controlled the flow of billions of dollars across the global economy. His face had been on the cover of Forbes, Time, and GQ. He was the poster child for the modern titan, stoic, brilliant, unshakable. He was the man who had navigated the 2008 crash without blinking, the man who ate competitors for breakfast. But right now, Graham Wexler was on his knees on the Persian rug of the Ashford's executive lounge, clutching his chest as if he had been shot. His tuxedo jacket was thrown onto a sofa. His tie was undone, hanging loosely around his neck like a noose he had just escaped. The room was spinning. The crystal chandelier above him seemed to be swaying, threatening to crash down and crush him. It was the gala for mental resilience. The irony tasted like bile in his mouth. He was the keynote speaker. He was supposed to go downstairs in 10 minutes and deliver a speech about strength, about fortitude, about how the market rewards the bold. He was supposed to write a check for $5 million to a charity that treated anxiety, all while hiding the fact that he was currently dying of it. Breathe, he commanded himself. Just breathe. But the air wouldn't go down. His throat felt like it had closed up. His heart was a jackhammer against his ribs. Thump, 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 so fast it hurt. His left arm felt numb. Was this it? Was this the heart attack? No, a rational sliver of his brain whispered, "It's a panic attack. You've had them before. Not like this. Never like this." The walls were closing in. The room, decorated in expensive beige and cream tones, felt like a padded cell. The pressure was immense. The merger. The allegations of insider trading from the rival firm. The divorce that was finalized quietly 3 days ago. The isolation. It all crashed down on him at once, a tidal wave of expectations he could no longer meet. He crawled toward the wet bar, trying to reach a bottle of water, but his hands were shaking so violently he knocked a crystal tumbler onto the floor. It shattered with a loud crash. The noise made him flinch, curling into a ball. He felt pathetic. He was a billionaire. He could buy this hotel 10 times over. He controlled the fates of thousands of employees, and yet he couldn't control his own lungs. "Stop it," he hissed through clenched teeth. Tears were streaming down his face, hot, humiliating tears. "Get up! Get up!" He couldn't get up. The fear was primal. It was a physical weight pressing him into the floor. He felt like he was disintegrating. The door handle rattled. Graham froze. Panic spiked into terror. If Marcus came back, if the press saw him, If anyone saw him like this, it was over. The stock would plummet. His reputation would be shattered. The narrative of the Iron CEO would be destroyed. He scrambled backward, pushing himself into the corner of the room behind a heavy leather armchair. He wiped his face frantically, but he couldn't stop the shaking. "Go away," he choked out, his voice cracking. "I said 5 minutes." But the door didn't open. Instead, a small silence hung in the air. Graham squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the intrusion, waiting for the judgment. Then, a voice came through the wood. It wasn't Marcus. It wasn't a member of the board. It wasn't a doctor. It was a small, high-pitched, undeniably young voice. "You're breathing wrong." Graham's eyes snapped open. He stared at the door. Was he hallucinating? The lack of oxygen was finally making him lose his mind. "Who is that?" he whispered, his chest heaving. "You're trying to pull the air in," the voice continued, muffled but clear. It sounded calm, matter of fact. "But your cup is already full. You have to pour it out first." Graham stared at the door, bewildered. The absurdity of the situation momentarily cut through the panic. He was a billionaire hiding behind a chair, being lectured by a child. "Go away," Graham gasped, though with less venom this time. "Security." "I'll call security." "You can't call security," the voice said. "You're hiding. If you call them, they'll see you crying." The truth of it hit him like a slap. The kid was right. "Who are you?" Graham asked, clutching his knees. "I'm Maya, and I can fix it." The hallway was empty, save for Maya standing in front of the looming mahogany door. She knew she was breaking every rule in the book. If Mr. Sterling found her, her mother would be fired. They might even call the police. The smart thing to do was to run. But Maya had heard the crash of the glass. She had heard the desperation. She pressed her forehead against the wood. She pictured the man inside. She didn't picture a billionaire in a tuxedo. She pictured a scared animal caught in a trap, thrashing around. "I can fix it," she repeated. It wasn't arrogance. It was a statement of intent. Inside the room, Graham Wexler was still trembling, but his focus had shifted. The intruder wasn't a threat. She was a curiosity. "You can't fix this," Graham groaned, leaning his head back against the wall. "I'm dying." "You're not dying," Maya said firmly. "Mrs. Gable says it feels like dying, but it's just a false alarm. Your brain is pulling the fire alarm, but there's no fire." Graham blinked. The fire alarm. That was exactly what it felt like. A siren screaming in his head. "I can't breathe." "Okay, listen to me," Maya said. She sat down cross-legged on the plush carpet of the hallway, her back against the door. "We are going to do the box." "The box?" "Imagine a box," Maya instructed. Her voice took on a rhythmic, soothing cadence, mimicking the tone Mrs. Gable used when Maya got overwhelmed by math tests or loud noises. "We are going to breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Hold for 4. Do you know how to count to 4? Graham almost laughed, a hysterical, jagged sound. "Yes, I can count to 4. "Good. Do it with me. I'm doing it too." Maya closed her eyes. "Ready? Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inside, Graham tried. He sucked in a breath. It stuttered, but he got some air. "Hold it," Maya commanded through the door. 1, 2, 3, 4. Graham held it. His lungs burned. "Breathe out. Blow out the candles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Graham exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. "Hold empty. 1, 2, 3, 4. They did it again. And again. For 2 minutes, the only sound in the hallway and the suite was the synchronized counting of a billionaire and a cleaner's daughter. "Better?" Maya asked after the 5th cycle. "A little," Graham admitted. The room had stopped spinning. The chandelier was stationary again, but the fear was still there, a cold knot in his stomach. "My hands are still shaking." "That's adrenaline," Maya explained. She was reciting her lessons perfectly. "You have too much energy. You need to ground. Tell me 5 things you can see." I can't see much. I'm behind a chair." "Then look at the chair. Describe it." Graham looked at the leather. It's brown, leather, distressed. There's a scratch on the leg. That's 3. Give me 2 more things in the room. The carpet is Persian, red and gold, and the glass. I broke a glass. 5. Good. Now 4 things you can touch. Right now. Graham reached out. The wall. It's silk wallpaper. My shirt. It's cotton. The floor. Wood. And my watch. Metal. 3 things you can hear. I can hear the air conditioning, Graham said, his voice steadying. I can hear the traffic outside faintly. And I can hear you. 2 things you can smell. Graham inhaled. Old whiskey and cleaning polish. And 1 thing you can taste. Fear, Graham said dryly. Then he paused. And the mint I had earlier. Maya smiled on her side of the door. See? You're back. You're in the room. You're not in the fire. Inside the suite, Graham slumped against the wall. The tightness in his chest had loosened. The tunnel vision had widened back to normal sight. He felt exhausted, drained, as if he had run a marathon, but the terror was gone. He looked at the door. He had just been talked off a ledge by a child who knew more about regulating his nervous system than the 3 therapists he paid $500 an hour. He slowly got to his feet. His knees popped. He straightened his tuxedo shirt, though it was wrinkled. He looked at the shattered glass. Are you still there? Graham asked. Yes, Maya said. Why? Because you didn't say you were okay yet. Graham felt a lump form in his throat, different from the panic. It was gratitude. Pure, unadulterated gratitude. In his world, people stayed because they wanted money, power, or influence. No one stayed just to make sure he was okay. I'm okay, Graham said softly. You fixed it. He walked to the door. He hesitated for a moment. He was a man who valued privacy above all else. But he needed to see the face of the person who had saved him. He unlocked the latch. The handle turned. The heavy door creaked open. Graham looked down. Maya looked up. The CEO in the $5,000 tuxedo stared at the girl in the faded pink t-shirt and the scuffed sneakers. He saw the cleaning cart in the distance. He saw the notebook in her hand. He realized instantly who she was, or rather, what she represented. She was part of the invisible machinery of his world. Hi, Maya said, clutching her notebook to her chest. She looked at his red eyes, his disheveled hair. She didn't look impressed. She looked concerned. Hi, Graham whispered. At that moment, the elevator down the hall dinged again. Maya's eyes went wide. Mr. Sterling, she hissed. She scrambled up. I have to go. My mom will get in trouble. Wait, Graham said, stepping forward. What's your name? Maya, she whispered. She turned to run, but stopped. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the foil-wrapped chocolate mint Henry had given her. She pressed it into Graham's large, trembling hand. For the taste, she said. The one thing you can taste, in case the fear comes back. And then she was gone, sprinting silently back toward the service corridor, vanishing into the gray world just as the heavy footsteps of Marcus and the security team rounded the corner. Graham stood alone in the doorway, holding a cheap chocolate mint like it was a diamond, watching the empty space where she had been. The grand ballroom of the Hotel Ashford was a cavern of sensory overload. Crystal chandeliers, each the size of a small car, dripped light onto a sea of black tuxedos and designer gowns. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, roast duck, and ambition. Graham Wexler stood backstage, hidden by the heavy velvet curtain. The darkness here was comforting, a stark contrast to the blinding lights awaiting him on the other side. He could hear the hum of the crowd, 300 of the city's most powerful people, buzzing like a hive of well-dressed wasps. And now, the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, reverberating in Graham's chest. The man of the hour, a visionary who has redefined the global market and a champion for resilience. Please welcome the CEO of Wexler Dynamics, Graham Wexler. The applause was a physical wave. It crashed against the curtain. Graham's hand flew to his pocket. His fingers brushed against the cool, crinkled foil of the cheap chocolate mint. Grounding, he thought. Touch. The texture of the foil was real. The noise was just noise. The lights were just bulbs. He took a breath. In for 4, hold for 4. He stepped out. The spotlight hit him instantly, blinding and hot. He walked to the podium, his legs moving on autopilot, the muscle memory of 1,000 speeches taking over. He gripped the sides of the lectern, feeling the wood, touch 1. He saw the blur of faces, sight 2. He heard the polite silence falling over the room. Sound 3. Resilience, Graham began, his voice steady, magnified by the microphone. We talk about it as if it is a shield, as if it is something we wear to protect us from the world. He paused. He looked out at the faces. He saw Marcus in the front row, checking his watch, looking bored. He saw rivals who wanted his company to fail. He saw friends who would step over his body to get a better table at a restaurant. But resilience isn't a shield, Graham continued, deviating slightly from the teleprompter. Resilience is simply the refusal to let the darkness win. It is the ability to breathe when the air feels too thin. The crowd nodded. They smiled politely. They didn't hear him. To them, these were just words, pretty decorations for a night of networking. They didn't know that 20 minutes ago, the speaker was curled in a fetal position on a rug, terrified of his own heartbeat. Graham felt a sudden sharp pang of loneliness. It was a cold ache in the center of his chest. He was surrounded by admirers, yet the only person who had actually seen him tonight was a 9-year-old girl in dirty sneakers who had offered him a mint. He finished the speech. The applause was thunderous. He smiled the fake smile, shook the hands, accepted the back pats. Brilliant, Graham, Marcus said, grabbing his shoulder as he walked off stage. Stock is up in after-hours trading. You looked like a statue up there, solid as a rock. Yeah, Graham said, his voice hollow. A rock. He slipped away from the after-party as soon as he could. He didn't go to the bar. He didn't go to his suite. Instead, he found the hotel manager, a nervous man named Mr. Henderson, who looked terrified to be addressed by a billionaire. Mr. Wexler, is everything satisfactory? The suite? The service? Everything is fine, Graham said quietly. I need to ask you something. Who handles the cleaning for the 22nd floor? Henderson blinked. The cleaning? We have a contract with Pristine Services. Why? Was something missed? I can have the entire staff fired immediately if... No, Graham interrupted, a flash of anger rising in him. No one is getting fired. I just need to know who was working the executive wing tonight. Specifically, was there a woman with a child? Henderson's face went pale. A child? Mr. Wexler, that is strictly against protocol. If an employee brought a child onto the premises, that is grounds for immediate termination. We run a 5-star establishment. We cannot have children running around the... Stop, Graham commanded. His voice was low, but it carried the weight of his bank account. You are not going to fire anyone. In fact, if I hear that anyone has been fired, I will pull the Ashford's contract for all my future corporate events. Is that clear? Henderson swallowed hard. Crystal clear, sir. Find out who she is, and bring me her name. Quietly, Graham walked away, his hand still clutching the mint in his pocket. He didn't know why he was doing this. Perhaps it was because for the first time in years he had found something real, and he was terrified of losing it. 2 days later, Graham Wexler did something he had never done in his life. He canceled a lunch meeting with the vice president of a major bank to go to the basement of a hotel. Mr. Henderson had provided the name. Elena Brooks, shift supervisor, hard worker, single mother. Graham took the service elevator down. The descent was slow and smelled of damp concrete and laundry detergent. When the doors opened, he stepped into a world that the guests upstairs didn't know existed. It was a hive of activity. Massive industrial washing machines thrummed like jet engines. Steam hissed from pressing irons. Carts laden with dirty towels rattled over concrete floors. The people here didn't wear tuxedos. They wore gray uniforms and sweat. They were the engine of the Ashford, hidden away in the dark so the light upstairs could shine brighter. The chatter stopped as Graham walked in. He was wearing a navy suit that cost more than everyone in the room made in a year combined. He stuck out like a sore thumb. Can I help you, sir? A large man folding sheets asked, stepping in front of Graham protectively. I'm looking for Elena Brooks, Graham said respectfully. The man hesitated, then pointed toward a break room in the back. Graham walked to the door and knocked. Come in, a tired voice said. Graham opened the door. It was a small room with vending machines and plastic tables. Elena Brooks was sitting at a table eating a sandwich from a Tupperware container. Next to her with a textbook open was Maya. Elena looked up and gasped. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Mr. Wexler, I'm so sorry. She had a half day at school. I had no one to watch her. I know the rules. Please don't report me. I need this job. Maya didn't stand up. She looked at Graham over the top of her math book. Her eyes were calm, assessing. She didn't see a billionaire. She saw the man who didn't know how to breathe. Mrs. Brooks, please, sit down. Graham said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. I'm not here to report you. I'm here to thank you. Elena froze. Thank me? Graham looked at Maya. Your daughter. She helped me the other night. I was having a medical issue. She intervened. Elena looked at Maya, confused. Maya? You said you just saw a man in the hall. He was stuck. Maya said simply. I helped him count. Graham pulled a chair out, a cheap plastic orange chair, and sat down. He was now eye level with Maya. You left before I could say thank you properly, Graham said to the girl. You were busy, Maya said. She pointed to the mint wrapper on the table. She had saved the foil. Did you eat it? No. Graham smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. He pulled the mint from his pocket. I'm saving it. For an emergency. Maya nodded approvingly. Smart. Sugar stops the adrenaline crash. You know a lot about this stuff, Graham noted. Mrs. Gable teaches us. She says everyone has a lizard brain and a human brain. Sometimes the lizard gets the steering wheel and crashes the car. You have to talk to the lizard nicely to get the wheel back. Graham chuckled. It was the most accurate description of anxiety he had ever heard. Well, my lizard is very large and very loud. That's because you have a lot to lose, Maya said with the brutal honesty of a child. Mrs. Gable says rich people are scared because they think everything is theirs, but nothing is really yours. It's just borrowed. Elena looked horrified. Maya, apologize. It's okay, Graham said softly. He felt a strange sense of relief. No one talked to him like this. Everyone treated him like he was made of glass or gold. Maya treated him like he was just a man. I wanted to give you something, Graham said. He reached into his jacket. Elena stiffened. Mr. Wexler, we don't want money. Maya did what anyone would do. It's not money, Graham said. He pulled out a small, leather-bound book. It wasn't a checkbook. It was a journal. A very high-end Italian leather journal with thick, cream-colored paper. You had a notebook, Graham said to Maya, but it looked full. This one is for whatever you want, drawings, math, or instructions on how to handle lizards. Maya took the book. She ran her hand over the leather. It was soft. Thank you, she said. And, Graham added, turning to Elena, I've spoken to the hotel management. They are going to review the no family policy for emergency situations. And they are going to provide a designated quiet room in the basement for children of staff who have nowhere else to go, with Wi-Fi and desks. Elena covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes filled with tears. That small change, a room, a policy tweak, meant more to her than a tip. It meant dignity. It meant safety for her child. Thank you, Elena whispered. No, Graham said, looking at Maya. Thank you. You threw me a rope when I was drowning. Graham stood up. He felt lighter. He turned to leave, but Maya spoke up. Mr. Graham? He turned. Yes, Maya? You can come back, she said. If the lizard gets loud again, I'm usually here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Graham nodded. I might take you up on that. He walked back to the elevator, feeling a strange sensation. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the stock market or the merger or the board. He was thinking about a leather journal and a little girl who knew how to count to 4. But as the elevator doors closed, shielding him from the warmth of the basement, the cold reality of the penthouse was waiting. And he didn't know that while he was finding his humanity, someone else had found a weapon. The office of Marcus Thorne was a shrine to minimalism and cruelty. It was glass and steel, located 3 floors below Graham's office at Wexler Dynamics. Marcus was the COO, the man who did the dirty work so Graham could keep his hands clean. He was ambitious, ruthless, and tired of being number two. Marcus sat at his desk, staring at a small digital recorder. He hadn't intended to record Graham's breakdown. Not specifically. He had left his phone on the table in the executive lounge during their argument, the voice memo app still running from a meeting he had recorded earlier. He had stormed out, leaving the phone behind for 20 minutes before realizing it. When he had retrieved it, he had planned to just delete the empty air. But then he saw the waveform. It wasn't flat. There was sound. He pressed play, sobbing, deep, ragged gasps. I just need a minute. Then, the voice of the child. You're breathing wrong. We are going to do the box. And then, Graham Wexler, the Iron CEO, the man the market trusted with billions, following the instructions of a child like a frightened toddler. I'm scared. Fear. Cleaning polish. Marcus stopped the playback. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. This was it. This was the silver bullet. The merger with Apex Capital was fragile. The board was already jittery about Graham's recent divorce and his distracted behavior. If they heard this tape, if the world heard this tape, Graham wouldn't just be embarrassed. He would be labeled unstable, unfit. A CEO who cries in a corner and takes therapy from a maid's kid? The stock would plummet. The board would have no choice but to remove him for health reasons. And who would be there to step in? Who was the steady hand, the man who never cracked? Marcus Thorne. But Marcus was smart. He couldn't just leak it himself. It had to look like an accident or an expose. And he needed to make sure the girl couldn't contradict the narrative. He picked up his desk phone and dialed a number. Get me exposure on the cleaning staff at the Hotel Ashford, Marcus said, his voice cold. Specifically, a woman named Brooks. I want to know everything. Immigration status, debts, criminal record, and find out about her kid. He hung up. He looked out the window at the skyline of Manhattan. It looked like a chessboard. Check, Marcus whispered. The following week, the atmosphere at Wexler Dynamics changed. It was subtle at first. Whispers in the break room. Strange looks from board members when Graham entered the room. Graham felt it. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. He was a creature of instinct, and his instincts were screaming that a predator was nearby. He was in his office reviewing the merger contracts when his secretary buzzed in. Mr. Wexler, there is a reporter on line 1, from the Wall Street Chronicle. I'm not doing interviews until after the merger, Graham said, rubbing his temples. She says it's urgent, sir. She says she has a recording regarding your health. Graham froze. The pen in his hand snapped. Ink leaked onto his fingers, dark and blood-like. Put her through. The click of the line connecting sounded like a gunshot. Mr. Wexler, the reporter's voice was professional, clipped. We have received an audio file from an anonymous source. It appears to be a recording of you, suffering a severe psychological breakdown at the Hotel Ashford Gala, interacting with an unauthorized minor. The source alleges that you are suffering from acute, untreated trauma and are mentally unfit to oversee the Apex merger. Graham couldn't breathe. The room started to spin. The lizard was back, and this time it had claws. Mr. Wexler, we are running the story tomorrow morning. Do you have a comment? Graham slammed the phone down. He stood up, his chest heaving. They had him. He didn't know how, but they had him. The humiliation washed over him, hot and suffocating. The world would hear him beg. The world would hear him cry. But then a thought cut through the panic. Maya. If they knew about the breakdown, they knew about the girl. The reporter had mentioned an unauthorized minor. The elite didn't just destroy their enemies. They destroyed the witnesses. Graham grabbed his coat. He didn't care about the stock price. He didn't care about the reporter. For the first time in his life, his first thought wasn't for his reputation. It was for the little girl who had taught him how to breathe. He ran out of the office, ignoring Marcus, who watched him go with a smirk from the glass-walled conference room. Run, Graham, Marcus murmured. Run right off the cliff. The morning after the phone call, the world of Elena Brooks turned upside down. It didn't begin with a shout, but with a whisper. Elena was clocking in at the Ashford service entrance when her badge didn't work. The little red light blinked repeatedly. Access denied. Access denied. Before she could ask security for help, two men in gray suits appeared. They didn't look like hotel management. They looked like sharks in human skin. They were fixers, the kind of lawyers Marcus Thorne kept on retainer for problems that couldn't be solved with a press release. "Ms. Brooks," one of them asked. He held a leather briefcase and wore a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We need to have a conversation." "Privately. Please step this way." They escorted her not to a manager's office, but to a waiting black SUV parked in the loading dock. Panic fluttered in Elena's throat. She thought of Maya, who was at school. She thought of their rent, due in 3 days. Am I in trouble?" Elena stammered, clutching her purse. "Not at all," the lawyer said smoothly as the car door closed, sealing out the noise of the city. "In fact, we are here to offer you an opportunity. A very lucrative one." He opened his briefcase and slid a document across the leather seat, along with a pen. "We represent the shareholders of Wexler Dynamics. We are aware of the incident involving Mr. Wexler and your daughter." Elena's heart stopped. Incident? He was kind. He gave her a book. The lawyer's smile tightened. "The narrative is shifting, Ms. Brooks. The board is concerned about Mr. Wexler's stability. We believe he was erratic, perhaps intoxicated. Perhaps he frightened your daughter." "He didn't," Elena said firmly. "He was having a panic attack. Maya helped him." "See, that's a very complicated story," the lawyer sighed, as if explaining calculus to a toddler. "The market doesn't like complicated. The market likes clear lines. We have prepared a statement for you. It simply says that Mr. Wexler was acting aggressively, that he cornered your daughter, and that you were distressed. If you sign this and agree to a strict non-disclosure agreement, we are authorized to offer you a settlement." He pulled out a check. Elena looked at the number. $50,000. It was more money than she made in 2 years. It was college for Maya. It was a better apartment. It was breathing room. "All you have to do is sign," the lawyer purred. "Confirm he was out of control. It protects your daughter from being dragged into the media circus. If you don't sign, well, the press will find you anyway. And the hotel. They don't like employees who bring controversy. Your job might become untenable." The threat was clear. Take the money and lie, or lose everything and tell the truth. Elena stared at the check. Her hands shook. She was a mother. Her primary instinct was survival. $50,000 could fix so much. And Graham Wexler? He was a billionaire. He would survive a bad news cycle. Why should she protect a man who lived in a castle while she lived in a basement? Elena started, her voice trembling. "Think of Maya," the lawyer pressed. "I am," Elena whispered. While Elena was being cornered in an SUV, Graham Wexler was watching his life dismantle in real time on a 4K television screen. He sat in his penthouse, the curtains drawn. The news channels were running the story on a loop. The audio had leaked. I just need a minute." His voice, broken and weak, played over stock footage of him ringing the bell at the stock exchange. The contrast was brutal. The Iron CEO was weeping. The pundits were merciless. Is Wexler Dynamics safe in the hands of a man who breaks down in a hallway? Sources say the board is calling for an emergency vote of no confidence. Who was the child? Was she in danger? This raises serious questions about judgment and safety. Graham turned the TV off. He threw the remote across the room. It shattered against the wall, joining the wreckage of his career. His phone buzzed. It was Marcus. "Graham," Marcus's voice was smooth, feigning concern. "It's a bloodbath out there. The board is freaking out. They want you to step down, just temporarily, of course, until you get help." "You did this," Graham said, his voice low and dangerous. "You recorded it. I'm trying to save the company, Graham. You're a liability. You're weak. A man who cries for a mommy in a hotel hallway can't lead a Fortune 500. It's natural selection." "I wasn't crying for a mommy," Graham spat. "I was human. Something you wouldn't understand. Human doesn't pay the dividends, Graham. The board meets at 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you don't resign by then, they'll fire you for cause. Gross negligence and reputational damage. You'll leave with nothing but your shame." Marcus hung up. Graham stood in the silence of his penthouse. He felt the familiar tightening in his chest. The lizard was waking up. You are finished. You are a joke. Everyone knows. He reached into his pocket for the mint wrapper. It was there. He rubbed it. Instructions, Maya had said. Follow the instructions. He didn't need a PR team. He didn't need a lawyer. He needed the truth. And he needed to make sure Elena and Maya weren't crushed by the machinery Marcus had set in motion. He grabbed his keys. He didn't call his driver. He went down to the garage, got into his personal car, a dusty sedan he rarely drove, and sped out into the rainy Manhattan streets. He had the address from the personnel file Mr. Henderson had shown him, a small apartment building in Queens. He had to get there before Marcus's goons did. The apartment was small, smelling of boiled cabbage and old timber. Outside, the rain lashed against the single window. Elena sat at the kitchen table, the check for $50,000 sitting in the center like a loaded gun. Maya sat opposite her, doing homework. "Mom?" Maya asked, looking at Elena's pale face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby," Elena lied. She pushed the check away. "Just grown-up stuff. Is it about Mr. Graham?" Elena flinched. "How did you know?" "I saw the news on the bodega TV," Maya said. She put her pencil down. "They're making fun of him because he cried. It's complicated, Maya. People like him, they have different rules." "It's not complicated," Maya said, her brow furrowing. "He was sad. He was scared. Why is that funny?" There was a knock on the door. Violent. Urgent. Elena jumped. "Don't answer it." "Elena, it's Graham Wexler. Please open the door." Elena froze. The billionaire was in her hallway. She went to the door and peered through the peephole. It was him. He was soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, wearing a plain coat. He didn't look like a titan. He looked like a man running for his life. She undid the locks and opened the door. Graham stumbled in, dripping wet. He looked at Elena, then at Maya. He saw the check on the table. He stopped. He saw the logo on the check, Wexler Dynamics Legal Fund. "They got to you," Graham said, his shoulders slumping. "Marcus sent them." Elena snatched the check off the table, holding it defensively. They said if I sign it, Maya stays safe. They said if I don't, I lose my job. I lose everything. And you have millions, Mr. Wexler. You can go to an island. We have nowhere to go." Graham looked at the woman. He didn't feel anger. He felt shame. His world, his company, was using its weight to crush this family just to save face. "You're right," Graham said softly. "I can go to an island, and you need that money." He walked over to the table. He looked at Maya. "Hello, Maya." "Hi," Maya said. She was holding the leather journal he had given her. "Are you breathing okay?" "Not really," Graham admitted. "The lizard is very big today." "Did you do the box?" "I'm trying." Graham turned back to Elena. "Sign it." Elena blinked. "What?" "Sign the paper," Graham said, his voice breaking. "Take the money. Tell them I was drunk. Tell them I was aggressive. Save your job. Save your family." "But it's a lie," Elena whispered. "It doesn't matter," Graham said. "I'm done anyway. Marcus won. I don't want you to be collateral damage. Take the money, Elena, please." It was a moment of total surrender. Graham Wexler was willing to destroy his own name completely to protect the cleaner who scrubbed his floors. Elena looked at the check. Then she looked at Graham, a man who had everything and nothing. Then she looked at Maya. Maya was watching them with intense, dark eyes. She stood up on her chair. "No," Maya said. "Maya, hush," Elena said. "No," Maya said louder. She pointed at the check. "That's lie money, Mrs. Gable says lies are like debt. You have to pay them back with interest eventually." Maya looked at Graham. "You told me not to let the fear boss me around. You said fear is a bully. If Mom signs that, the fear wins. The lizard wins." Graham stared at the 9-year-old. She had more integrity in her little finger than his entire board of directors. "Maya," Graham said gently, crouching down. "Sometimes adults have to do things to survive. This is about survival." "It's about the truth," Maya insisted. She opened her leather journal. She flipped to a page. "Look," she said. Graham looked. It was a drawing. It was crude, done in crayon. It showed a large, scary green dragon breathing fire. But next to the dragon was a small stick figure holding up a hand, and behind the stick figure was another, larger stick figure. Underneath, in messy handwriting, it said, Graham and Maya versus the lizard. "We are a team," Maya said. "You don't sell out your team." Elena looked at the drawing. She looked at her daughter's fierce, unyielding face. She realized that if she signed that paper, she would feed Maya for a year, but she would starve her spirit forever. She would be teaching her daughter that money is worth more than truth. Elena took a deep breath. She picked up the check. She ripped it in half. The sound of the tearing paper was louder than the rain outside. "Elena," Graham gasped. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," Elena said, her voice gaining strength. She ripped it again and again. She threw the confetti of $50,000 into the trash can. "I am not a liar," Elena said, standing tall, "and my daughter is not a victim. You were not drunk, Mr. Wexler. You were sick, and you asked for help. That is not a crime." Graham felt tears prick his eyes, not from panic, but from awe. "So," Elena said, crossing her arms, "what do we do now? Because I just threw away my rent money and Marcus Thorne is going to come for us." Graham stood up. The slouch was gone. The trembling in his hands stopped. He looked at the torn paper, then at the drawing in the journal. A plan formed in his mind. It wasn't a corporate strategy. It wasn't a hedge. It was a gamble. "Marcus wants a show," Graham said, his voice hardening into steel. "He leaked the tape to humiliate me. He thinks I'll hide. He thinks I'll resign quietly tomorrow morning to avoid the press." He looked at Maya. "Tomorrow is the annual shareholders gala," Graham said. "Every camera in New York will be there. Marcus is expecting to announce my resignation." "So?" Elena asked. "So," Graham smiled, a dangerous, wolfish smile. "I think we should go." "We?" Elena asked. "Yes," Graham said. "You, me, and Maya. We aren't going to hide. We're going to walk right into the lion's den." "They won't let us in," Elena said. "I'm the help. Maya is a child. I'm the CEO," Graham said. "And until 9 a.m. tomorrow I still own the keys to the castle." He knelt down to Maya again. "Maya, are you brave?" Maya nodded. "Yes." "Are you brave enough to tell a room full of very rich, very scary people exactly what happened in that hallway?" Maya thought about it. She touched her journal. "Will you be there?" she asked. "Right next to you," Graham promised. "We'll breathe together." Maya smiled. "Okay, let's fix it." The next morning, the Hotel Ashford was under siege. News vans clogged the streets. The paparazzi were swarming like locusts. The rumor was out. Graham Wexler was finished. Inside the ballroom, the atmosphere was funereal. The board members sat at the high table, looking grim. Marcus Thorne stood at the podium, adjusting his tie, checking the microphone. He looked triumphant. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice projecting confidence, "we are gathered here in difficult times. But Wexler Dynamics is bigger than one man. We value stability, we value strength. And sadly, Graham Wexler has chosen not to attend today to offer his resignation in person, which speaks to his crash." The double doors at the back of the ballroom didn't just open, they were thrown wide. Every head turned, the cameras swung around. Marcus froze. Standing in the doorway was Graham Wexler. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo. He was wearing a simple gray suit, no tie. But he wasn't alone. Holding his left hand was a woman in a simple Sunday dress, her head held high. Elena. And holding his right hand was a 9-year-old girl in sneakers and a clean white shirt, clutching a leather book to her chest. The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. "I haven't resigned yet, Marcus." Graham's voice rang out, unamplified but powerful. "And I have a witness." He didn't walk to the podium. He walked down the center aisle through the sea of shocked faces. He didn't look at the investors. He didn't look at the cameras. He looked straight ahead. Security guards stepped forward, unsure what to do. Graham just looked at them, the same look he had given the hotel manager, and they stepped back. He reached the stage. He lifted Maya up onto the platform. He helped Elena up. Marcus stepped back, his face draining of color. Graham, this is insanity. You're making a scene. Get that child off the stage. Graham stepped to the microphone. He looked at the crowd. He looked at the red recording lights of the cameras. You all heard the tape, Graham said. You heard a man crying. You heard a man begging for air. And you laughed. You sold stock. You wrote headlines. He paused. He took a breath. In for 4. Out for 4. That man was me, Graham said. And I am not ashamed. A gasp rippled through the room. I have spent 20 years building an empire on the idea that I am invincible, Graham continued. But it was a lie. And the only person honest enough to tell me that is standing right here. He moved the microphone down, lowering the stand until it was at Maya's height. Maya, Graham said gently, tell them. Maya looked out at the sea of faces. Hundreds of adults, rich adults, scary adults. The lizard wanted to run, but she felt Graham's hand on her shoulder. She felt her mother's hand on her back. She stepped forward. She looked at Marcus, who looked like he wanted to vomit. Then she looked at the camera. Hi, Maya said. Her voice boomed through the speakers, squeaky but clear. My name is Maya. I'm 9, and I fixed him. Maya gripped the sides of the podium. It was polished wood, slippery under her small palms. The lights were blinding, hot against her skin. I found him in the hallway, Maya continued, her voice gaining a steadier rhythm. He was behind a chair. He couldn't breathe. He was crying. A murmur went through the crowd. This was the juicy gossip they wanted, the confirmation of weakness. Marcus smirked in the background, thinking the girl was digging Graham's grave. But, Maya said, her tone sharpening, he wasn't weak. The room went quiet again. He was just full, Maya said. My teacher says everyone is like a cup. Sometimes the water gets too high and it spills over. Mr. Graham's cup was spilling, that's all. It doesn't mean the cup is broken. It just means you have to pour some out. She looked directly at a man in the front row who had been whispering to his neighbor. Do you ever cry? She asked him. The man blinked, stunned. It's okay if you do, Maya said matter-of-factly. It's just water. It washes the scary stuff out. She turned back to the crowd. Mr. Marcus, she pointed a small finger at the COO, who flinched. Wanted my mom to sign a paper. He wanted to give us $50,000 to say Mr. Graham was drunk, to say he was bad. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts. Reporters were typing furiously on their phones. Attempted bribery, cover-up, scandal. Marcus looked like he had been shot. He stepped forward. She's lying. The child is coached. I don't lie, Maya said, her voice cutting through the noise. Lies are debt. My mom tore up the check, because the truth is worth more. She opened her leather journal. She held up the drawing of the stick figures fighting the dragon. Mr. Graham was fighting a dragon, she said, and he was losing, so I helped him count. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what you do when someone is hurt. You don't take a video. You don't laugh. You help. She looked out at the glittering elite, the billionaires in their tuxedos, the women in their diamonds. You have a lot of money, Maya said, but you are poor because when your friend fell down, you didn't pick him up. You tried to steal his shoes. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the silence of shame. Maya stepped back from the microphone. She looked up at Graham. Did I do good? She whispered. Graham wiped a tear from his cheek, openly, in front of the entire world. You did perfect, Maya, he said. Graham stepped back to the mic. He looked at Marcus, whose career was effectively ending in real time. Then he looked at the board. I am not resigning, Graham said, but I am making changes. Effective immediately, Marcus Thorne is fired for cause, specifically corporate espionage and attempted bribery. Security guards moved toward Marcus. He didn't fight. He looked deflated, a balloon out of air. And, Graham continued, I am announcing the creation of a new initiative, the Project Maya Foundation. Wexler Dynamics will commit 20% of its annual profits, not revenue profits, to fund mental health resources in public schools and support services for service industry workers. He looked at Elena. And Elena Brooks is no longer a contract cleaner. She is the new director of community outreach for the foundation, with a salary that reflects her integrity, not her uniform. Elena covered her face with her hands, sobbing silently. As for me, Graham said, looking at the camera, I am going to take a sabbatical. I am going to go to therapy. I am going to learn how to handle my lizard. And when I come back, I will be a better CEO because I will be a human being first. He took Maya's hand. He took Elena's hand. We are done here, Graham said. They walked off the stage. This time the crowd didn't stay silent. One person started clapping, then another, then the whole room. It wasn't the polite applause of a gala. It was the raucous, messy applause of people who had just seen something real for the first time in years. 6 months later. The service hallway of the Hotel Ashford was quiet, but in the basement, things had changed. The quiet room was open. It was painted a soft blue. There were desks, computers, and beanbag chairs. Children of the staff sat doing homework while their parents worked upstairs. Maya sat at one of the desks, finishing her math homework. The door opened. Graham walked in. He looked different. He had lost the gray pallor of stress. He was wearing a casual sweater. Hey, partner, Graham said. Hi, Mr. Graham, Maya smiled. How's the breathing? 4 in, 4 out, Graham said, steady as a rock. He sat down next to her. I brought you something. He handed her a small box. Inside was a new pen. It was silver, engraved with her name. For the journal, he said. Thanks, Maya said. She tested it on a piece of paper. It wrote smoothly. You know, Graham said, leaning back, people still ask me about that night. They ask me how I knew to trust you. What do you tell them? I tell them that when you're falling, you don't look for a parachute. You look for a hand. Maya looked at him. She capped the pen. You didn't need me to fix you, Mr. Graham, she said wisely. You just needed someone to hear you break. Graham nodded. Maybe that's the same thing. Upstairs, the hotel was busy. The rich were still rich. The world was still loud. But down here, in the quiet, a billionaire and a little girl sat side by side, just breathing. And for the first time in a long time, the air was sweet.